Hello everyone. Today I wanted to go much more in depth on how level design works. So usually you would have some sort of game design document. I made a very baseline one that helps you look at it from a level design perspective. So some of the most important things you'll need when you're coming up with your idea for your game is what mechanics are going into the game, as that's going to completely alter how you design the level. So what I've done is gone ahead and created a couple of mechanics that are already in the project that we're going to go through, and we're going to look at how they work. So what mechanics do we need? We have vaulting, we have opening doors, locked windows, climbing, key, walk-in sprint, jump, and third person. The only things that you need for the level design would be the vaulting, opening doors, locked doors, and the key. And then usually you would have your name for the game, or at least the name of the project, and it would go through a slight detail of it. So this one is the character wakes up in an alleyway, finds their way inside of a store that's locked up, but the back door isn't locked. The player goes inside, finds the doors are locked, so they find a key in the building, and that's what allows them to get out front and escape the alleyway. The player will be able to vault over obstacles, climb up large boxes about 3 meters tall. Their goal is to find the key, unlock the door and windows to be able to get out. So this lays out what the ideas for the game are, what the mechanics that are needed for the game, and then it puts them all so you can see. So when you're designing, you can go through and keep them in mind. So then your next part would probably be to go over and bring up your tool and actually design the levels. So the player will start right here, indicated with a red X. And then the key will be located, let's say, right here with a yellow X. Let's go with something a bit easier to see, a dark green X. So the key means we can leave, and so now we go in and we'll design the building, little rooms inside of it. So with this built in, boom, boom, there's one room right there, and then we can do something as simple as put little lines right here to give a doorway. Of course, you can go into much more detail with the drawing. I'm just trying to show you some ideas. You just type out window, and this is to lay out the idea so you and the rest of your team can see what's going to be going on with the level. And so as we said here, here's the start, kind of matches the X. That way we know this key unlocks this door and this window. I know these are all simple ideas, but I really wanted to show like, hey, there's more to it than just going in and building a level real quick. So if you're keeping in mind of these obstacles. So now that we've got this all laid out, we're going to go into the actual level. I've created 3 different little objects that'll help us with this. A key, a window, and a door. If I go into play, you'll see how these mechanics are set up. If I go over here and hit E, nothing happens. If I go over here and hit E, nothing happens. If I go over and pick up the key, and then I go over to either one, door opens, window slides up. So how this all works is we'll need to go into the character, CBP, sandbox character, has key. So we need the has key in here at least, added as a variable. So that way we can call it in the other blueprints. If I right click, browse to asset, and then I open up all 3, this one has E pressed, and then it goes to a branch. A branch is, it requires a condition. If that condition is met, it continues through. If it fails, it goes into the whatever you set on there, or it just doesn't go through because you don't have anything set. This one requires has key, and then it uses event begin overlap, which is using this trigger box right here, or sorry, box collision. And you'll see over here, there's a box collision, and there's the box collision got shrank over here, but there is a box collision. And what it allows is enabling input, and that allows the E input. If it is not met as having key, which as we showed before was inside the character, has key. If you do not have key, you cannot do the input of E. So how that works is you right click, type in E space key, you scroll down to the E key right here. There's your E key. It'll create it if you have pressed and released. If you press it, if it's pressed down, or even tapped, it will cast to the character, enable the input, which is your key, and then it gets the player controller from the character, which is obviously your character. And index 0, 0 is always player 1. Okay, and with all that set up, you connect the other actors from begin overlap to the cast BP sandbox character, or whatever your blueprint is called. And that tells it if this character overlaps this, enable the input. And once it's enabled, E goes into cast, and then it sets has key to the variable. And then when it's checked, so what you have to do is with this cast, so when you drag off, cast to CPP sandbox character, then you drag off here, you can do set has key. So once you have set has key, it'll bring it up in there and you'll connect it and that'll make it through. And then you'll want to make sure that it clicks to the check mark and that'll make it go through, and then we have a destroy actor so the key doesn't stay there. So how you get this has key is inside your character. You'll want to go down, click plus on the variables, and then you'll want a Boolean, which is kind of the condition variable. And then you'll type in has key and you'll use that. I already have it, so I'm not gonna add it again. And that's all you have to do for that is has key. And then whenever you cast between, you need to have it go through, check the condition. If the condition has changed and you have the key, the has key allows the input. And when you do end overlap instead of begin overlap, which is again right click, event begin overlap right here. And then there's also end overlap, which would be end overlap right there. These are very simple codes to use for it. And how it works for the window, we go through a flip-flop, which allows once you've used it the first time, it goes through and plays. And this little timeline, you do plus track, add float, and then you get your, we'll go ahead and full screen. You go ahead and right click to add your first node, then you'll set the time to 0 and the value to 0, and then on the end, you'll set the time to 1 and the value to 1. It always starts at a length of 5. I lowered it to a length of 1, which all you do is change this number right here. We'll go ahead and add one real quick just to show you how it's done. So right click, add key, 0, 0, right click, add key, 1, 1. It's as simple as that. And once everything's set up, it will allow you to go through and it'll play from 0 to 1. You will connect new track to lerp, and a lerp goes from one to the other, or it is one or the other. You connect this to the alpha, and that allows it to take the Z location, which is over here, and go from 0 to 90 from the relative location. There are two different types of location. There is world location and relative location. Relative means where it is located inside of the blueprint. How you create a blueprint is you right click down here, go to blueprint class, and then you use an actor for something like this. A pawn is one that is possessible by a controller like an AI. A character is one that the player plays as well as it's also being able to be used by AI. So what this allows is for us to create things like if we go in here and we add a cube. Now we have a cube, and then we just take that and we use our sculpt and really shape it into place. You'll notice that in details, it has 0, 0, 0. That means it is located at the 0 point inside of the blueprint. What we did with the timeline is we took that 0, raised it up to 90, and now it's right there. Our wall is actually smaller than this, so it goes from there to there, open and closed. It's as simple as that for that blueprint. Same thing with the door. Instead of doing location, we do rotation. It rotates based off of where it's in the blueprint, not in the world. So you can place the blueprint wherever you want, and it still rotates based off of where it is in the blueprint. So if I place it right here, it will still open this way. If I place it right here, it'll still open this way, which allows it to work. If we compile, and then we have key, it's simple for the key is event overlap, which we've set up a overlap. This is this box, which is as simple as adding in box collision right here. And then you just scale it to what you want it to be. This allows the player to walk inside of it and collide. And then when the player is inside of it, event begin overlap. We allow the input from the get controller, player controller, which allows us to get their keyboard or their controller. And then we connect, and then that allows the input, and we press E. And then we go connect to sandbox character, which is the character they're playing as. Connect the other actor on the event begin overlap, so that way we know this is active. And then we, once again, we drag off to the set has key. Then we check it, and then once we hit E on it, it destroys the actor, but this variable is now changed to active. If it is unchecked, it is not active. So once everything's said and done, you go through, you have your flip-flop, you go through your timeline, you connect to your set relative rotation for the door, you connect the door inside of your blueprint, which is as simple as typing in a cube, or actually going to your content browser and dragging and dropping in a door. And then once you have that dragged in, you can drag off of it and then set relative location, or in this case, rotation. And then you will right click the new rotation, split struct pins, and that will separate all three of your rotations. Z is the axis that is pointed straight up, so it will rotate the door along its little corner bit. You want to find a mesh that specifically has this corner right here, so that way it rotates properly. I'm going to go ahead and fix the collision box because it is not where it should be. We're going to scale it into place. I want the character to be able to be at least a little bit away from it, so there we go. When we hit compile, whenever we do parts, whenever you add that variable, you want to compile or it will not save that variable as being active. So once we have all this done, you do the E, cast the character, has key, destroy actor, key is gone, but now we have the access to the rest of the event graph, which allows us to press E, goes through, flip-flop, play, and then you go off of update, so that way it updates the system, goes in, sets the relative location. We have the lerp, we have 0 to 90, which means 0 and 90 degrees. So with it connected to the alpha, it can go between these using the 0 to 1. So this would be 0 and this would be 1. And then once it's connected here, it sets the new location. This one is the window. So for this one, it would be the location of Z going up and down. So we have the SM cube, which is what I used for the window. And that's as simple as that. That's the whole code we used for this. And that gave us our key. So with all of that, the begin overlap, enable input, E, sandbox, set, destroy actor, we get our ability to press E, branch, make sure you connect down here of drag off of the cast sandbox character, has key, get has key, and that allows you to set connected to this branch that this is the required condition in order for the branch to go through. And once you have that all set up, enabling the input and everything, you have the key. The flip-flop allows it to open, and then the B is the next time you activate it, it reverses. So if it's opened a quarter of the way, it will go back to being closed, so you can spam it if you want. And then the lerp, the SM cube for its location, or in the door's case, rotation. And that's all you have to do. Make sure to do the struct pin and everything. And that's how you get the simple key for the mechanics that we're going for. Just a little bit dive into coding. So now that we've got all that set up, we can go to our level. All right, with our basic setup, we can activate our Shift 5 or click here and go to modeling, and we can go to our cube grid. So this is where it comes in with the little paper that we made before. We look here, we have a little design sheet we want to do. If you want to take it a step further, you can take this, export it out, and put it inside of Unreal. We're going to look at the design. We wanted a room here, a wall here, a room here. So we want that shape. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through. We're going to drag across here. Press E. And we're going to drag across here. And press E. And then we wanted that little room right here. So boom. So we wanted the walls to be 4 high. We know that we wanted a door here, so we're going to go ahead and E. For those of you who don't remember, if you drag across, well, you can click and drag, press E to go up, Q to go down. And then we can go over here, add another door, and then we can go right here, add another door. And then here's where we keep in mind that we have, if you want to shrink your cubes, go ahead and shrink them right now. I'm going to create a little window right here. Now we can, to make it add a little bit more detail, we can drag across here, hit Q, oh, that's too many. There we go, now we can apply. Now we've got this little area that looks like a little window. So since we knew that we wanted a window there, we have the window there. And now we can place our little window inside. So here's where we can take into account, we wanted the window. So now we have the window. We can go ahead and go into the blueprint. And now that we're in the blueprint, we can take the viewport, click the window, and we can drag it across, drag it up. Now I have the scale of the window. Hit compile. Now we just need the collision box to match. So put the collision box in the center of the window. Grow it. We can hit G here to make it easier to view. We can grow it to the size of the window. Maybe a little bit more. And we're going to make it taller. Now it fits on both sides. Compile. So now we need to look at how high we need the window to raise. So we click the window, and now let's raise it up till it's at the top. And that would be 216. So we take this copy. Let's lower it to where the tip shows. So right there. Let's copy our Z location. Let's go back into our event graph. And we'll go to our lerp and we'll place that in the lerp and compile. So now we're going to go back in here, set this to 0. There we go. Now we're going to save that. Now our window will open up exactly how high we want it to. And then now we want our other door over here. So we go back into our cube grid, set this back to 5. And we drag down. We'll do it right here, Q. So now we have an entrance to this room. And we know we wanted the exit over here. So we're going to go ahead and set our exit right there. And now we've got our building designed. Let's get our door over here. Let's go ahead and fix our skylight real quick. So now that we've got all these doors set up, the window set up, we wanted a window over here. So now we can go ahead and, for this part right here, we can just drag over, window. So there we go. Now we just have to remember to go through and replace those with little glass layers. We won't worry about doing that right now because it's just a simple tutorial. So now we're going to go back into our cube grid. And we're going to build our alleyway. Okay, so with all this set up, now we've got our areas. We want to put the locked door over here. So now we rotate it 90. We put it into place. Seems the door is a little large, so we'll go ahead and scale it. Like I said, this doesn't have to be perfect just yet. This is just for the testing. So now we want a little area over here for our key to be set up. So we'll go to the cube grid. And we'll just return it to 5, and we'll set a simple thing here for the key delay. Apply, set the key there, and we'll go ahead and grab our box. We need to be, we'll slide the key forward. There we go. Now we save, and it's as simple as that. Now if we hit play, we can test our entire level. We went through, we designed the entire thing. We have our little windows, we have our exit, we have our entrance, we have our key, we have all of the rooms that we set up to make. And now we just need to go over here, change it to GM Sandbox. Now we play from here. Alright, so now that we're in here, we have our alleyway. We didn't scale it to the player size, but there's a few cool things we could go ahead and do in here. And, see, this is one thing that we didn't account for. I didn't put the back door over here. Alright, so here's how we're gonna do it. We're gonna drag from the floor now. Q. E. Click, click. We hit Z to go into here. So we click those corners, hit E, and Q, hit done, and that will work. Doesn't look the prettiest, but we're not trying to make it look the prettiest. Now we can go in and test. Oh, for those of you wondering, we can go ahead and click up here. Hit player start. We can drag in a player start to the exact location we wanted them to start before. Now we can click here, and we can do default player start. Now when we hit play, we're inside of our little alleyway. There would be fences there, which we would replace all the meshes for. Then we would come over here. Here's a little entrance area, exactly how we designed it in the map. We have a little room over here we can go through. We come over here, and then we look up here. We hit E, nothing happens. It's like, oh, okay. Oh, what's this? It's a key. Oh, alright. So I would have to edit this and fix up that doorway, but come over here. Voila. There we go. Now we've made an entire functioning little area for the character to be able to go through. They have a key. Well, the door is still too tall. And now the player has gone through. They found the objective. They found the goal. They went through. There we go. It's a simple, that's about how you do it. You go through, you set up your ideas, you get them to at least do a baseline work. If you're working with a full team, if you're the level designer, you'll have to either have the blueprint behind the programmer make the baseline version of your playable code, and then you'll go through and start adding it in, or you'll at least need to know the baseline enough to be able to make those low-end mechanics, so that way you can at least design the level based off of them. This is all important because you want to be able to keep track of the enjoyment of the level, how long it takes to get through the level, whether it's actual good thing to have that in the level or not. And then you could do simple things as, like, let's go ahead and put a light, and let's say you put something like a rect light right here. We're going to go ahead and click here. Let's go ahead and cube grid. Let's put a roof on this thing. Accept. There we go. Now I've got a light over here showing us, oh hey, this is important. So we would slide this down right here, and then we would shrink not the angle, the height, and then we would raise the width. Now I got this entire thing lit up, and you could, if you wanted to take the time, you could go through and have the code connect to the key once it's destroyed by setting up a Boolean variable, set up a branch. Once you pick up that key and it's destroyed, this light goes from 0 intensity to, let's say, 3. Now you've got this light lit up. And it's all sorts of little things like that. So the player would see, oh, it's dark over here. I tried it before. It's not working. If you go over here, you pick up the cube. All of a sudden, this light's on. They're like, wait, well, that wasn't on before. You press E on it. Or, as you've probably seen in games many times, you walk over and it pops up with the little E and you have a lock over it. And like, oh, okay. Same thing with the door over here. E pops up. All right. And you go over, pick up this key. It's like, oh, wait. Those things were locked. Then you come over here. The lock is gone, but the E would still be there. I'm not going to go over how to set up those codes right now. I'm just giving you ideas for your games. So that's how you would design for the interior of a game and actually go through an actual build of a level, set it up, and play it. Because we did our idea of the level setup, the entrance and the exit of the level, the mechanics inside of the level, and we planned our level based off of those. So we wanted these to be, oh, hey, cool, our exit. And if we really wanted to take it a step further, we could go back to our cube grid and really put a window right here. And so the player sees, oh, that's the exit right there. And then you would place like a window right here. So if I were to like window, so now we've got this idea of, oh, hey, there's the exit. It means I need to go that way. So you come over here, this doesn't open, this doesn't open. You're like, well, shoot. You get this, and you come over here, and then they work. You want to give them ideas, maybe even when you press E, if with your branch, if we go in here, if we go into the window, With your branch, if it goes false, you could do play sound at location, and you could set the sound of like a locked door. So if you don't have the key, it plays the locked door noise. They're like, oh, that actually did something. Whoa. And that gives them all these ideas of, hey, this is all interactable. You just can't do it at the moment. You have to go through and find stuff. All right, so with everything placed, there's one last thing we need to add in that finishes up, and that would be the vaulting. So we go back in here, we go to our level prototyping, and this part's pretty simple. We went over it in the last video. With our level prototyping, we go to our traversal. We set our cube in here. We'll make it a little bit taller, because it needs to be. We set it in place, we shrink it down where it needs to be, we grow it across, and now we just double click the static mesh and type in visibility, and we make the cube no longer visible. And then we could go a step further, we could design an entire, we could design an entire desk over there. We could do another thing of like, for this one, we could make the static mesh visible. There we go. Now I got a fun little setup going. And then of course you would have to lay lights along here, but because we use the cube grid, the lighting isn't perfect. And if you don't want to use the cube grid for the ceiling, it's actually pretty simple. We can go back in here, go to mesh, and we go to the create, we can go back to the cube grid. We can click, drag across the roof, get rid of that roof, apply, go to content. We can do our SM cube. Now we can drag our cube in right here. And it'd be as simple as moving it into place. If we really want those shadows, we can go across. We can go over here. But you really can't get your lighting perfect until you got those models in there because you don't know how they're going to react to the light just because you have them. So let's go ahead and do that across. There we go. Tire level's dark. We set in some lights in here. We go ahead and expand these. Raise our indirect lighting intensity. Go ahead and set them to movable for now. And if you set a little lamp right there, maybe you want to show the key to a player. So let's go ahead and go in here, add spotlight. Now we're going to watch from here. We're going to use our blueprint to edit it, but we're going to use our in-game to see it. So let's go ahead and set it up as though there was a lamp pointed at it. So there's that spotlight. Let's go ahead and set it to 1000. Set to 40. Raise the outer and inner cone a little bit. Let's change it to a bit more of a lamp hue or older style lamp. Let's go ahead and lower it even more. Make it 10. Make it 4. 4 is too little. There we go. Compile. So now they'll see, oh hey, there's a key here. Alright, so now when we test, we'll actually be able to see inside of there. So one thing you might wonder is, one thing we're going to go ahead and touch up on is, I don't like how the camera rests on the character. So we're going to double click into him. We're going to go to viewport. We're going to do our spring arm, which is where the camera sits away. And as the spring arm moves, it moves the camera from that far away. We're going to go into details. We're going to shrink the spring arm. And then I'm going to move its location lightly over the shoulder and compile. We're going to set the character down. We're going to be clicked on the character. So now over here, you can see the little character. And we're going to move it to about right here. Take our spring arm, slide that a little bit farther over, and compile. So, of course, you'd have to do a bit more than just that, but that's just moving the camera to a more enjoyable spot. So there we go. Now we got a bit more of a dynamic angle. I think the camera's honestly a little bit too far over, but now as we test, we can go through here. We have our windows. It's all lit up. It follows through everything we did. Of course, we can't do the window or anything, but now we can come over here. We're gonna have our fun with our little vault. Now we see a light there, the key. Light's gone. Key is picked up. Now that way's, I forgot to light up that way, but now we can come over here, hit E on here. Oh, so one thing we didn't do, we did not make this thick enough. And then there we go. Let's go ahead and play from here. Grab our key. Open it up. There we go. Now I can vault on in. So there we go. We used every single mechanic that is on our list right here. So we've got our level. It's designed exactly how we wanted it to be. It's hidden. And then if we look at it directly straight down, and it's exactly how we designed it to be. Of course, there's a little bit of differences, but we got our windows, we have our room, we have our hall, we have our room with the key, we have our extra room right here. And then we went in and used our mechanics to just further the design even farther. I hope this all taught you something, and I hope it really helps you think more like a level designer. As there is far more to it than, as I've said before, than just building a pretty looking level. If it doesn't have mechanics or anything and you can't go through it and it's not interactable, it is not an actual game level, it is a baseline arts piece. Which levels are art pieces, but they're interactable art pieces. That's the big difference. I hope you all learned something, and I hope you had a good day.